Hi guys, welcome back to the Book Vandal Shop. It's been a while since I've had a tutorial. So yeah, that's what we're gonna do today. I'm not even sure I remember how to do one. I don't know how much of this will be a tutorial, as you can do it as a craft along with me. So this is a file folder journal. Organizer, portfolio thingy, I don't know, whatever you want to call it. If you look back in the Rudolph little golden book journal that I made around Christmas time, I had a little insert in there. And this is very, very similar to that. So, you know, if you were interested in that insert that was in that journal, it's constructed much the same way. The only difference was on this spine here, I had sewn it into the journal like it was one of the signatures. And there might be a difference in like where pockets and stuff were. But okay, let's jump into it. I'm going to show you what we're making. Let me get a drink here. Okay, so this is using the Bee digital kit that's in my shop. Honey Blossom, I believe it's called. It's in my Etsy shop. And there are like 40 some odd pages of journal pages and ephemera and stuff like that in it. So it is a very big kit. The base here, no Carly, the base here is constructed with 2 file folders. And let's see, over here, this is the journal part. And I have, oops, I just shoved all those in there. I have just bound a single signature in here as a journal. But as you can see, that there is plenty of room to add embellishments and glue things in here. So that was my purpose there in leaving plenty of space and only doing one signature, is that you could take the ephemera in the kit and decorate up your journal as you use it. So I've just printed off all of the lined papers that are in the kit and bound them in the signature. And then back here we have a pocket to hold some of the cards and ephemera that's in there. These were others that I had found later, and I just shoved them in the back. So all kinds of things you can use to decorate up your journal. Okay, and then, well, I'll show you what else. Then here on this part, I have made little envelopes that hold the other ephemera things. And then later, after you've decorated your journal, you could put keepsakes and things in there. Isn't that cute? So there's magnets underneath these, and then there's magnets glued to the inside of these envelopes. Pretty cool. I can sit and play with that for a while. Okay, and then I put Velcro here on the envelopes, but I think in doing that, I wouldn't do it again. So in the envelopes, you could put these little small things in here. You get the idea. And I don't like the Velcro. It's too adhesive, and so then the envelope gets bent. So I wouldn't do that again. Okay. All right. So that is what we're going to make. So you need 2 regular file folders, ledger size, I guess I would say. Or not ledger size, letter size. There we go. Letter size. There's one. Okay, and then if you want to do it just like the one I made, you're going to need the digital kit from my shop, but please don't feel obligated to do that. You use whatever decorative things you want to use, okay? All right, so in the one I made, this is my template here. In the one I made, I chose a file folder that had a center tab because I liked the look of of the tab being in the center. But you could totally do it with a file folder that has a tab at the top or the bottom. It really doesn't matter. So, okay, let me move this stuff out of the way here. The first part that we're going to make is this base, this back part. And then this part here came from a different file folder. Okay, so we're making the base or the back. And as you can see, it is the length of your entire file folder. Okay, so that's what I used there, was a letter size file folder. And let me get my template out here so I can see what we're doing. All right, I'm going to flip it over so I can see my measurements on the back. You take your file folder and you've opened it up and you have the tab on the left, right? Okay, so let's go ahead and flip it over so that you have the tab on the right, okay? Alrighty, now let me get my ruler and something I can use to score. I have a scoring board, but I rarely ever use my scoring board because it's big and cumbersome, and I can do just as good of a job with a ruler and like a little embossing stylus or a bone folder, you know, if it has a thin enough tip on it, you know, it works great for scoring. Okay, so here's the natural fold of our file folder right here. And what we want, if you want yours to be identical to mine, I want a 3/4 inch spine, okay? So from its natural fold, I'm gonna go over to the left, 3/4 of an inch, okay? And that, if your file folder is like mine, it would put it on the natural score marks that are in the file folder. Let's see if I can get that to show up. I can't, but so mine has 1, 2, 3 score marks already in it, and 3/4 of an inch puts it on the farthest or last score mark. If yours doesn't have those, that's fine. Just measure over 3/4 of an inch. And I don't even use pencils anymore. I just make little marks with my stylus, and then we're going to score. I can't see. Okay. Okay, so now we've got our spine. Then we're going to measure over from the line that we just scored. We want to go to the left 6 inches, okay? So from the line I just scored, 6 inches. And 6 inches. And I am going to score that. Okay. There's my line. Okay. Then I'm going to do another 3/4 of an inch from the line that I just scored to the left. Everything we're doing is to the left, to the left, to the left, to the left. Okay. Okay. And that gives you, that's that little part that bent around like this. See? Okay. All right. Okay, now we're going to do all our measurements that are to the right. Okay, it's like line dancing. Okay, So from the original fold in the folder that we left, we're going to go 6 inches. The end of my ruler's broke, that's why I'm measuring from like 2 to 8 for my 6 inches. If you don't have a stylus pen, also what works great is a pencil that you've broken the lead off of, or a mechanical pencil. If you've pushed the lead in, you can just run a mechanical pencil down the side of a ruler. It works great for scoring. You don't need a fancy scoreboard to do these type of projects. And like I said, I own one. It's just, you know, I have to store the big thing somewhere, and then I've got to dig it out every time I want it, and it's just faster. Okay, so there's our line. We just did that one. And then we need a spine. And this time we are going to go 7/8. So just a tiny bit bigger than our 2 spines here. These were 3/4, which is 6/8. And this time we're going to go 7/8. Okay, because this is our very outside, that's the spine right here. And so basically, we want to give it a little bit of extra room to go around all of the bulk. That's why we're doing that. Okay. All right, 7/8. Whoopsie. So almost an inch, but not quite. And sorry for the jostle there. I gave you a little ride. Okay, and that's that. That's that for our scoring. Okay, now this thing is still really too tall, right? Okay, so we need to cut the height down. And for this particular journal, I used a height of 8 7/8 inches, and that gave me just a little bit of extra room past my journal signature on both the top and the bottom. So I'm going to do that again, 8 7/8 height. Now, before you just go and whack this off in your paper trimmer at 8 7/8, if you want to keep that center tab where it is, we want to do it from this, cut the top and the bottom, okay? If you're using a left-hand tab or a right-hand tab, you're going to want to make sure that you measure your 8 7/8 inches where you want it to be. You may not want to be cutting the tab off. That's up to you. So you need to think about that before you just stick it in the trimmer and whack it off there. All right, let me grab my 0 center ruler. Handy dandy thing it is. Tim Holtz. Although I have one. Where did it go? Oh, right here. This was a Fisker's one, 0 centering, but I've used it so much you can see I've worn all the letters off, but this one's fairly cheap to get. Super handy. And center this up. Let's see. My folder measures... Oh, it's a little over 11 and a half, 11 5/8. So it's not going to be quite a perfect center. So I'm just going to do the best I can on finding the center. And that gives me an 8.5. That's an 8. That's close enough. Close enough. So that's my center. Now, again, I wanted to go 8 7/8. So I'm going to go 4 inches this way and 4 inches that way. So there's that. I'm going to get a pencil here. I do my math out loud, so you can not listen to me for a minute, okay? So there's 4 and 4. So that's my 8. That's my 8 inches. And then I have 7/8 of an inch left over that I need to break up. So that puts me at about 3.5/8 on this side and 3.5/8 on that side, which I know is not even a legit measurement, but just go with it. 1, 2, 3.5-ish. 1, 2, 3.5-ish. Okay, and so these two outside lines there, that's what I want to cut. All right, and so I've centered it. That way my tab stayed right in the center, and I'll measure this just to double check. But yeah, we are at 8 7/8. Okay, all right. Be right back, I'm gonna cut this. Okay, so I've cut it down to height. And so we have now made the basic skeleton, the basic back skeleton back here. Okay, so now we need to make this part here, this cover for our little hidden journal. Okay, flip around here and you can see what I'm talking about. See that? Cool. All right, so we need the little cover here for our journal. Okay, now I used a second file folder for that. If you've got some cardstock that's big enough to do it, by all means go for it, but a normal sheet of cardstock is 8.5 inches and I want 8 7/8. So I'm a little shy. So that's why I went ahead and used file folder. But if you've got some 12 by 12 scrapbooking paper that's heavy enough to do it, by all means you can go for it or use a file folder like I am. Okay, so this is what we're making now. All right, let me go this way. All right, so here is our file folder turned over. Okay, here's the factory fold, and I put my tab on the right just because that's the way I like to work. All right, I need a 3/4 inch spine again, and if you're working with the same type of file folders as me, that is the factory fold that's the furthest to the left, or the factory score line furthest to the left. So that is what I'm going to score. Again, 3/4 inch spine is what I'm putting on here to the left of my factory fold. I'm just going to go ahead and fold it so you can see it. Okay. All right. Now, my 3/4 inch spine here, I need 4.5 inches on this side and 5 7/8 on this side. Okay. So I am going to cut that off in my paper trimmer. I'm going 4.5 on this panel, okay, from this side of, from my factory fold, okay, 4.5. And on this panel over here, from the score mark we just made, I'm doing 5 7/8, okay? All right, so I'm going to cut those off. While I'm there, I'm also going to cut for my height. I want it to be the same height as my cover, okay? Same height. And what was our height again? 8 7/8, okay? 8 7/8 height, 4.5 on this panel, 5 7/8 on this panel, okay? Be right back. Okay, so I have cut that down to size. Again, 4.5, 5 7/8, 3/4 inch spine, cut to height, and the height was 8 7/8. Okay, now this is why I have two different sizes for my panels, is so that when I glue this in, when I glue this down, and you'll see, this is my cover and I want it to fit perfectly. And then the back side, I cut it a little short because I want that to be my pocket. I want to be able to slide things in, and I didn't want it all the way over here. And that makes it hard to get things in. Okay, so that's why I did that. All right, next step is reinforcing our spines, because these are going to get folded back and forth, back and forth, back and forth a lot, and they will get weak if you use this a lot. So on the journal that I made, I used this brown paper tape, Easy Tear paper tape, Duck brand. Of course, I'm sure they make it in 100 different brands. I'm thinking I found it in the shipping supplies area. I went with this because it's already brown. It matches the browns in the digitals that I'm using. And so I didn't really have to distress it or do anything with it. Some other options, This is some Johnson & Johnson fabric. I think they call it sports tape. It's a cloth or a fabric tape. Super sticky, obviously, because I'm having so much trouble. I think it's also sometimes called a micropore tape. And this works awesome because it is fabric and it's adhesive. But you know, if you don't want it to be white, you have to sit and distress it with your inks. Okay, and I didn't want to do that, so that's why I went with the paper tape. You could use masking tape, you can use fabric, whatever. Or if you're not going to use it that much and you don't care, you don't have to reinforce them at all. But that's what I'm going to work on now. Now on this one, I only did the places where it was bending. And then I went around and I inked everything else. But I think what I want to do is wrap even the edges of my cover with this tape so that the edges are more protected as well, because you know it is file folder. And so I don't know, I'm going to try that and see how it works. We'll put a few pieces on here on camera and then I'm going to do the rest of it off camera. Okay, so I really like this paper tape though, because I hate distressing things. It's just so boring. So I can use this and get away with not having to do that. All right, I think the easiest way to do it is just to lay my tape out, and then I kind of eyeball where it's straight. I want to straddle my spine that I created there. I want to straddle that into the center, and then I just wrap this around there and grab my scissors, and I'm just going to eyeball about the length that I need. Go ahead and cut it as straight as I can. I'm sorry, Blue. Are we disturbing you? Disturbing your beauty sleep? There we are. Now this is going to make your spines, your folds, very stiff. But they will, the more you work with them, they will loosen up. So this one was extremely stiff, but I've worked it enough times now that it opens and closes quite nicely. So you just have to abuse it a little. Love it harshly. There we go. That sounds better. Okay. All right, and do the same thing with this spine and this spine that you created. Okay, and then whatever you want to do, ink the edges, or you can cover them in tape as well. I do like to round the edges on this and this, but I think since I want to wrap the tape, I think I'm going to attempt wrapping the tape first and then punching my corner. Let's see how that works. I'm going to do it right now on camera and we'll see if it's an epic flop. And let me cut that down just a hair more. Okay. I haven't done this, so I don't even know if it's going to work. Okay. And see, I don't have to make it look pretty because I'm going to cover all this up with decorative paper. And I'm just doing this because I just think maybe my file folder edges, maybe I want to give them a little extra support. I don't even know if this is going to work. We shall see. Okay. know that was several layers of tape right there on the corner, but it would just protect the corner quite a bit, right? Yeah, I think I would like that. And let me look at this one. I think since I reinforced the corners so much on that, I think I'm just going to leave it nice and straight and not round it. That would definitely make it easier when I do my paper piecing in later. Okay, I'm going to finish the rest of this off camera and I will be right back. So you go ahead and do what you want to do on your reinforcing or inking, whatever you want to do. But I'll see you in a few minutes. My time. Okay, so that took a wee bit of time. I don't know if I'm gonna like it or not, but I did go ahead and put the tape all around the edges, and boy, it really sturdies things up. So I do like that. It was a bit of a pain to, you know, get everything covered, but I really do like how much it sturdied up the edges. Now, I don't know how much it's going to end up looking like a file folder when we're done, but we'll see. Okay, so that being done, we also need to do the same to our what's going to be our cover of our journal over here. Okay, so again, on this one, I only did the spine area to reinforce it, but I think I want it to match everything. So I will probably wrap all of the edges as well. Now that we're on this part, I also need you to start thinking about your journal signature and get that gathered up. Okay, so for me, I put in, let me count them for you. I think it was 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay, so I have 11 sheets of paper folded in half here. These I printed on just a nice paper. It's a copy paper, but it's a really nice copy paper. And then these I printed on the presentation paper. It's a little heavier, so that's the cover for my signature there. So go ahead and gather up the things that you want for your journal signature, because we're going to be binding that in. And go ahead and cover or ink the edges for your cover for your journal part. Okay, again, words, they're escaping me. I'll be right back. Okay, that's done now. Everything is all reinforced there. Now, one thing I forgot to mention, and hopefully it's not too late for you, is that this smaller panel is what we're going to be gluing down for our pocket back here in the back cover. And on this version, I took my straight edge and I traced the tab inset off of the file folder. I just traced it and cut it out. So that way I got that file folder look back there, and it also kind of gave you a little bit of a notch for getting things in and out. So you might want to do that before you ink or tape up your edges. That's up to you. I totally spaced it and didn't do it on mine, so mine's going to have a straight edge. The other thing you could do is take your circle punch and punch a notch out if you want to do that, but this one's going to be a straight edge because yeah, I forgot to do that. So okay, now before we glue our pocket down on the back, we want to cover this in some paper so that it's nice and pretty, and then we're going to want to sew our signature in before we glue it down, otherwise it's going to be awkward getting it in. Let's see, I have some papers. A bunch of these are just scads of that bee kit that I just put in my shop. I have lots of test prints, and so I'm just using those up. So some of them are misprints, some of them are you know, where I changed little things here or there, or changed the shadowing. Yeah, I think I want it like that. Now, I don't need it to cover the entire panel because this is going to be a pocket. So there's really no need to have to cover the whole thing. I just need, you know, enough that it gets hidden behind the pocket. So I'm just going to cut it off right about here. And the nice thing about using this size of height is we can just use the normal height of our paper. I don't have to cut, so there's not a lot of waste. I'm just going to go ahead and cut that right now. Okay, and so that's going to go on there. And then see, this will go down on top, and I'll have a little pocket here. Okay, so I'm going to ink this up and glue it down, and I'll come right back. Okay, so we've glued that down. Now I'm ready to sew the signature in my, oop, I have it backwards, haha. Sew the signature in my little journal here. Okay, so remember, the big panel is your cover, the small panel is your pocket. I'm just doing a single signature because I want to leave plenty of room to embellish and fill up my journal without making my my journal get too bulgy. Okay, so I'm just kind of laying that in there. I'm centering, here, let me get rid of this big panel. Just kind of centering my signature within the top and the bottom, you know, so I have an even edge at the top and the bottom for my cover. And what I'm doing now, let me turn this and let me zoom you down here, is I'm just going to make, I'm eyeballing the center. It doesn't have to be exact. And I'm just making a little mark there, and I'm going to carry that little mark over into about the center of my spine. And then, oh, I don't know, this looks like a good spot here. I'm marking it on the back of my journal signature, and I'm just going to carry mark over and center it there on my spine, and do the same thing down here. That looks like about the same spacing. Really, it's not rocket science, doesn't really matter. Okay, now I can move that off of there, and I have my 3 holes marked on my signature, and I have my 3 holes marked on my spine. You may not be able to see them, but I can see them. Okay, find my little punch thingy. Don't punch through to your finger on the other side. There's 1. There's 2. There's 3. I'm going to come over here. And I don't know why I marked that on the back side. That was dumb. I need to mark it on the inside. So all I did was turn my journal signature kind of inside out. What you could do is just take the center page out of your journal signature, lay it down, mark the holes, and then you know where to punch. Or you can make a template, you know, if you want to get that fancy, but I just don't find where there's any need to get that fancy when I'm only doing 1 signature. Okay, now I know where I'm punching on the inside. Duh. And punch. And you could lay this in a book cradle too, if you were getting all fancy. And there. And oh, that was a tough one. Okay, now I've got my 3 holes. I'm just doing a simple 3-hole pamphlet stitch. Gonna leave the knot in the middle because we're going to do something cool with the strings. I'm using a waxed thread here. Normally I just use upholstery thread, just regular old upholstery thread, and then I run it through some beeswax to wax it up. I find the wax helps it be easier to work with and makes your knots stay a little bit better. For this one, I am using, see this Real Leather Craft Lace, that's the brand. It's a waxed thread, and it comes in it's a fairly big thread, and you really don't need all of that. I usually just split it in half, and that's what I've done here. I split it in half, but it's heavily waxed and it's nice and stiff, which is kind of cool because here, I'm going to show you what I'm going to end up doing. In the center of my signature, I've left the knot, and you can see these threads here. They're nice and stiff, right? So my son said, why don't you glue some bees on the end of your threads, and then that way when you open the book you have these little bees that are kind of buzzing up. I thought that's just too cool, so that's what we're going to try doing, or what I'm going to try doing. Okay, let's get this sewn in. No more yakety yakketing. And I'm just doing this on camera because I know most of you probably know how to do this, but we're doing it anyway. All right, make sure you leave yourself some tails. If you need to keep yourself from pulling this all the way through, tie a paper clip on here just one time. And then you won't accidentally pull it through your hole. Okay. Going back into this one. It's always fiddly when you're doing it on camera. And you're not wearing your glasses. There we go. Okay. Then I'm just going to go back through the center hole, being careful not to run the needle through my threads. I want to run the needle next to my threads, not through them. Because if you run it through them, you'll have a terrible time tightening up your stitches. Okay? Alright. Sorry, I'm flopping this around in your face. Okay, we're going through the back side up at the top. Good land on. Put your glasses on already. Through hole. Okay. Give them a nice tug, but I don't want to tear anything. That's also why that tape is really good. You can really reinforce it, and then you can pull on those threads and you're not going to rip your file folder. Okay, now I forgot to tell you what I was doing there, didn't I? So I now take this thread here in my right hand, and I'm going to run it underneath this stitch. Okay, and that gives me some leverage to pull against. See what I mean? Okay, take my needle off and tie a knot. And I'm just going to tie it once more for good measure. There we go. And trim these up just a tad. Okay, but these threads are nice and stiff and they stand right up. And so yeah, I think my son is right. That would be really cool to have some bees kind of flying above my paper. Okay, so we've sewn our signature in our little cover here, and I flubbed up on camera, so luckily my glue hadn't dried yet. Before we glue this down, we want to attach our ties. So if you're going to make yours like mine, and so what I have here is just 2 pieces of twine that are glued in on the back side, and then they just come across here, and we're going to make these little circles, these little what we call button and string closure is what that's called. Okay, so before I glue this down, let's get those attached. Oh, drop my strings on the floor. Okay, so these are going to come around, and what I want to do, it's a little bit tacky still from where I goofed up and glued it down. What I want to do is sort of measure where these larger tab pieces are at, and that'll be about where I want my string to come across. You know, I want my string to kind of center up with this, so I'll want my string right about there. Let me make a little mark. I'm covering with paper anyway, so it won't show. And then I want my string to come up or wrap around right about there. Okay. Ooh, it's trying to glue back down on me. So I have some twine. It's just regular baker's twine. And I've cut off plenty of extra. Let me just put that down there. Okay. And little bit of my paper tape. You could take some scrap paper, anything like that. And I don't want that string to move or come out. So I'm putting a little bit of glue down and rubbing some glue over the string. Okay. And then I'm going to actually get a little bit outside the edges of the string, and then I'm taking this is my paper tape, but you can take a scrap piece of paper and glue it down over the top of your string, so that way your string is nice and secured and isn't going to come off. Okay. All right, then I'm going to do the same to this string right here. Not sure where I need to put it, so let me wrap it around. Yep, that's about where we want it. Okay. It's going to go right about there. About time to open a new bottle. Getting a little bit heavy-handed there. Okay. I'm just smearing some glue on it. Now I got a little bit too heavy-handed there, and my pocket will glue down to my page if I don't watch it. We don't have any scrap paper laying around, so I'll just use another piece of my paper tape. Okay. There we go. All right, make sure I don't have any glue or anything wet here, because this is my pocket. I've got my strings ready now. I'm just going to tuck these in here so they're out of my way. Okay, and now I'm ready to glue my pocket down, and I'm just doing the 3 edges. 1, 2, 3, and I'm not putting any glue on this one because that's going to be the opening of my pocket. And so this is actually the second time for me to be gluing this down. But you didn't get to see me messing up because I'm going to cut that out of the video. Oh. Gosh, it feels like it's been forever since I did a craft along or a tutorial. I am so out of practice. I feel like a total noob again. All right. So I'm going to put this down, and I am leaving myself just a little bit of room. This is my spine right here, okay? My score mark, okay? And I'm leaving myself a little bit of room. I'm backing up that direction from it because I don't want a pinch spot in there, okay? And then the other thing is your twine adds a little bit of bulk. So see how I want just a little bit of space in there? So come away from this score line or this fold just a little bit, okay? Make sure that you've left yourself the same space at the top and at the bottom so your booklet's not in there crooked. Okay, let's get that glue nice and secured, and we're going to let that dry. All right, coming right along. So now we want to work on our closure. Okay, so we're going to have this is our string, so now we need the button for the button and string closure. And let me bring this one back in. On this one, I had decorative paper down the edge, and I think I want to do that again. So before I do my buttons, I need to get this covered with some decorative paper. So let's bring my paper pad back over. You know what? Let's just use this one. I've already cut off of this one. That will work. Yeah, that will work just fine. Okay, so I want the width of my strip. That's what I'm going to cut first. So I'm just going to back off the edge just a tad. Leave myself a little bit of room, you know what I'm saying? I'm going to cut it right there on that mark I made. Okay? All right, let me cut that. Oops, I had a Post-it note stuck on the back. All right. So see, that's just going to fit right in there. Okay. And then I need to cut out this. So I'm going to flip this over just like that. Kind of flatten it out a little bit so it's easier for me to work with. I'm going to zoom you down so you can see what I'm doing. Grab my pencil. Okay. I'm going to get it approximately where I'm going to want it centered. I'm not worrying about the notch yet. I'm just getting it centered overall. Okay. All right. Now, putting a little mark here, little mark there. That way, in case I lose it, I know where I'm lining it back up again. All right. I'm going to pinch it, hold on to it. And on the back side, this is just the way I do it. You do it however you want, but I'm kind of a perfectionist and I like it to follow the exact line. And actually last time I learned my lesson, it was easier to use a paper clip or a clothespin to help hold that for me. So I centered it height-wise where I wanted it. Put a little clothespin here to hold it. Grab my other clothespin. There we go. Like, I don't know why I'm sitting here trying to hold all that when I learned my lesson last time. Now I can flip it over. And I'm just tracing that. Kind of like trying to hold on to a wet spaghetti noodle. Okay. So I have my general shape there. Now I don't want it to match up the edge exactly. I like it to be inset a little bit. So what I do is I use my edge as a guideline again, and I line that up. Okay. Zoom you down just a little bit farther. Okay. So here's my tracing line I made. Okay. All right. I'll trace it back again so you can see it better. This is the line I originally drew just a second ago. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to line up this edge with the top edge. Do the same down here at the bottom. I'm lining it up, and when I do that, I get that nice little gap. Okay. So I can trace this part, and then I need to slide it down to expose my rest of my line and trace the rest. And then I have a line to cut on. That one. Most people just eyeball it. I don't know. I'm kind of a perfectionist, I guess. All right. Oh, am I disturbing you? See? Now it matches up perfectly. I have a nice little brown edge all the way around. Okay, so I'm going to ink that up and glue it down, and I'll come right back. Okay, so goofy me. I inked it up, but I haven't glued it down yet, and I'll tell you why. Because this was my original one, and when you open it up, I haven't put anything here yet, but I had intended to put a piece of paper, decorative paper, over the top, so for one, you didn't have to see the back side of the eyelets, and so it finished things off a little bit. So I haven't done that on this one yet. So before you glue this down, use it as your template and cut another piece for yourself. Okay, to go right there. But don't glue it on yet. If you want to cover the backs of your eyelets, okay, and you don't want those to show, don't glue it on yet, okay? All right, so I'm going to make another one, and I'm just going to set it off to the side. Okay, so I glued that down, and I have my extra one right here that's going to go on the inside after I've set my eyelets. So I'm just gonna tuck it in my journal pages out of the way so I don't lose it, and especially so I don't lose it up here in my mess. And so now we're ready to make our buttons for our button and string closure, and I'm going to show you how to do that. You probably already know how to do that, but I have tape stuck on my scissors. I have some scrap file folder pieces here from what I had cut off, and I kind of like a double thickness for my buttons so they don't get all bent up. So I'm just going to glue these together here. Just so I have a double thickness. Okay, and then I like the decorative button having some patterned paper on it. So I'm just going to grab some patterned paper. Maybe I have some left over from the first time I did this project. There we go, there we go. There's some beehive paper. That'll work. Boy, I even laid that down so it wouldn't suck back up in there, but we're just getting to the end. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Now, I've glued those together. Ooh, now I have glue on my dauber. It's all right. Before I punch this out, see, because I'm going to want to have a circle in the center of my circle to put my eyelet, and it's really hard to, after you've punched it, to then find the center of your circle. So I learned this trick from Artie Mays, I believe. So what she did is she just takes her punch and she goes ahead and punches the circle. Okay, I'm going to trim this off so I can see my edges. And then she takes her circle punch and she's able to better see where the center of her circle is. Okay, and it works like a charm as long as my punch works. This one is giving me fits lately. It needs sharpened. Well, I tried sharpening it. I've punched it through aluminum foil. I've punched it through wax paper. I've punched it through sandpaper. And it just isn't wanting to cooperate with me much anymore. So I think it's time to invest. So anyway, I am going to make a second one of these. So I have 2 of them, and then I'll come right back. Okay, so I have my 2 little buttons. And what I want to do now is I'm just going to lay them about where I want them to be. And I'm with my pencil, I'm just going to mark the center hole. There we are, and then that way I know where to punch with my eyelet setter. Okay. And there's that one. And there's that one. Okay, now the thing with using button string closures is for them to work, you know, properly or better, you want to have a little bit of clearance room for your string to go behind between the surface and your button. Now you can do that with punching a smaller circle and gluing it on the back. so that it raises up off the paper a little bit. If you have these are like the We Are Memory Keepers crocodile eyelets, and some of them, and I don't know if they still do, some of them came with washers, and they were supposed to make the back side look nice and pretty so that it didn't look like that. I have never been able to figure out how to get mine to look like that. So if you know how to do that, because I've watched tutorials and everything, and I still can't get them to look like that. So I never even used the washers. So, but I did find a good use for them. Let me grab a couple of eyelets here. I like the yellow ones because honey is yellow. I'm just grabbing a little handful here because they're not all the same color, and I'm trying to find two that match. I believe this one and those two match. Those will work. Okay. So I'm going to take my eyelet and I'm going to put it through the top of my button like so. Okay. And if I flip it over and I put two of those little eyelet washers on the post of my eyelet, seeing like that, I'm probably blurry, sorry. Then it raises it off my paper just a little bit. You know, I only need a little bit. All right, let's get this puppy set. This whole thing's a little bit fiddly to work with, but, and give it a good smoosh. Okay, and I'm going to do the same thing. Just put my eyelet through the top. Grab me a couple washers and put them back there. Totally don't have to do this part at all. I just kind of like doing it. It gives me the clearance that I need. Uses up things that are in my stash that I'm never going to use. And it's faster than cutting out another smaller circle and gluing it to the back, which I've done before. Okay, so I've set those, and they're nice and ugly on the back, just like they always are for me. Hang on, I'm going to give that a nice little pound there so they're not sharp. Okay, now where'd that little piece, and it's not in there anymore. It's over here. All right, so now I can glue that down right there, and the back of my eyelets won't show. Before I do that, though, I don't like the bright white showing through my eyelet hole. Like I said, I'm picky, I'm particular. So I just grunge it up a little bit with my dauber. There we go. And then when I glue that down, when you look through the eyelet hole, it's kind of dark back there and you don't see anything. Okay? All right, so I am going to glue this down and I will be right back. Okay, so I glued that down and now that part's done. And so now at this point, if you want to, go ahead and cover the inside of your journal cover here with some paper and add a pocket if you want to. I stuck a library pocket in mine. Go ahead and cut you a piece of paper to fit back here on this panel. Add a pocket if you want to, and that part is done. And then this just closes up like so. And until you use them a few times, the buttons will get a little stretched out as you use them. Okay. Now, your cover sometimes is going to be, you know, it'll go down like that, but that's okay because we wanted to leave ourselves some room to fill this journal up, remember? So now we have plenty of room for this journal to grow inside the space that we've made for it. Okay, that's exactly why we did that. All right, next, if you want yours to be like mine, I had these envelopes over here, remember? And the whole reason I made them removable was because if you're putting little things in them, again, I don't like the Velcros on them, is that way you can pick them up and dump them out, okay? Whereas if it's glued down on your page, you're digging in there trying to pull the little things out. So I really liked how handy it was just to be able to pull it off and dump your stuff out of it to use, okay? And, you know, it was kind of an afterthought because in hindsight, I could totally put the buttons, or not the buttons, the magnets underneath this page, you know. So like right now, if you wanted to, you could go ahead and glue your magnets here and glue your magnets there and then cover it with a sheet of paper, you know, and then your envelopes would stick. But I thought, you know, I'd already glued this down. I could have glued a new sheet over the top of it, but I thought, how cute would it be that my magnets are hidden underneath these and the elements are now sort of raised off the page like the bee is floating, you know? So up to you, whatever you want to do there. But you'll want to cut out one of the envelopes from the kit or whatever kit you're using or whatever envelopes you're using. You can use regular store-bought envelopes if you want to. Okay, so you want to go ahead and cut those out and get those all prepped and ready, inked and glued up. Like I said, I wouldn't put a closure on them now if it was me, but that's up to you. Or if you do, maybe just one Velcro instead of two. And then what you want to do is lay your envelopes, both of them, lay them out, okay, spaced where you want them to be. And if you're going to go ahead and put your magnets under your paper, then, you know, you'll kind of want to lift up and make a mark about where you want your magnets to be, okay? And do the same thing for the upper envelope. But I'm going to do this one, I'm going to do this one the way I did this other one. So I am going to go ahead and cut and ink and glue down a sheet of paper for my panel, and then I'm going to come right back. Okay, so I am back without having to print off more digitals because, like I said, I've got a ton of these printed off. Anyway, I didn't get things cut out for mine, but you do what you want to do. If you want to cut some out like this, like I did, go for it. If you want to hide your magnets behind this base piece of paper, that's cool too. So what you're going to want to do is you've got your envelope, and I misspoke earlier. Don't glue your envelope yet, okay? Leave your envelope open, okay? And find out where you want your magnets to go, okay? So holding your envelopes down just like you would, and you might want to put a little mark, okay? And you're going to glue your magnets down. These are nice and flat. So I've got several kinds of magnets in here. Watch them, they will pinch your fingers. These are from Basic Gray, I believe is the name of the company, Basic Gray. And they are super thin magnets, but they are expensive. If you get on eBay or Etsy, you can usually find a cheaper bunch of magnets in bulk. These are a little smaller in diameter, but they work great. Neodymium, does that sound right? I think's what they're called. Or a rare earth magnet. They're super, super, super strong, so don't get your fingers pinched in there. And do not lose them on the floor or let your pets or little children get a hold of them, okay? All right, so you're going to want get them apart. You're going to want to glue your magnets down where you've marked for them to go, okay? Now, best glue for magnets, because they are, you know, wanting to be pulled off the page all the time. I use this. It's called E6000. I use it in the clear, okay? Just a warning, this is industrial strength glue. It is toxic. You need to use it, you know, maybe use it outside or open a window and turn on a fan. It stinks terribly. It's bad for you. So I am not endorsing it for any health purposes, okay? So I'm just giving you a warning. But this stuff is strong, very strong, and it will hold these suckers down, okay? So you just want to glue your magnet down where they need to go, okay? And then go ahead and glue If you're doing them like I did these, go ahead and glue your little accents down, whatever you choose to cover or hide your magnets with. That looks like little eyeballs, doesn't it? Okay, so honey pot or a bee or whatever. And glue those down on top. Next step. This video is getting very long, that's why I'm doing it this way. Okay, so here's my envelope. Yes, I had glued it because, duh, I forgot. So I opened it back up. Okay, before we glue our envelope. All right, so what I will do is I like to put my envelope down over the top about where I'm going to want it to go. Okay, I've got the flap open. All right, and now what I can do, ouch, without pinching my finger with these magnets. Now what I can do, let that sit there. Hopefully it'll sit there without moving. Get myself two more magnets. Okay. And then let them fly where they need to be. Okay. And then trace them. Okay, and don't try to pull them off because your other magnets may not be dry yet, okay? So you don't want to accidentally pull them off. Just slide them off the page. Slide them off. And that other one got lost in there under the honey pot, didn't it? These suckers are strong. Okay, and then that way you can pull this off and now you can glue your magnets on. Now, remember when you slide your magnets off, okay? Remember to make sure which side needs the glue. So when you slide this off, okay, and you set it off, you're putting the glue on the bottom side, okay? Remember that. Where'd the other one go? And some of these that are really thin, if you let them smack against each other, they will break. And when they break, they are sharp. Okay, so that's where my magnet's going. I obviously moved it underneath there because my circle's not lining up anymore. But you get the general idea. I'm just sliding it off, okay, to the side, and I'm going to be putting glue on the underside, okay? All right, now, after I've got my magnets glued on, I'm gonna set this out of the way. I've got my magnets glued on now, okay? They're sitting right there on my envelope. My envelope's all inked up, okay? What I want to do now is, for me, I wanted to cover my magnets in here with a piece of paper. And my reasoning for that was that when I have things in my envelope and I'm dumping them out, I didn't want them catching on my magnet. I also didn't want to look down in there and see my magnets. I wanted it to be nice and smooth. So if you notice, I don't know if you can see it, but I cut a piece of cardstock the size of my envelope here, and I glued it down. Okay, all the way, because I didn't want any places for anything to catch. Okay, so that's up to you if you want to do that. All right, and after you've done that, then you can go ahead and glue your envelope up. All right, and then boop, it's ready to go. And then you'll do it again with your second envelope. Okay, for closures, if you know, I don't care for the Velcro, but that's totally up to you. You could use magnets for closures. I think that's a little overkill. Honestly, I think all it really needs is, well, this is a decorative paper clip, but let's just pretend it's nice and plain. Okay, I think just a plain old paper clip like that would keep them down, and you wouldn't need any type of closure on there. You totally wouldn't have to have it on there at all, but I think keeping the flap down, that way if your journal tips, you're not losing anything out of your envelopes. But I don't think it would anyway, because you're going to have it closed up like this. So totally up to you whether or not you want to put a closure on those or use a paper clip to hold them down. Okay? All right, enough said. I think you get the idea. You guys can finish decorating this on your own. You don't need me telling you how to cut paper and glue it down. Just, decorate it up however you want to. I think this would be really cute with some lace and some trims and, just be decorated up a little bit more. But anyway, the front cover here, to make it look like this. This was my husband's idea. He's like, it needs to be one single panel. I was going to do a pretty picture and then just do a beehive over here on the tab, which would be cute too. But he thought it needed to be a single picture. To do that, you need 2 pieces of the same paper. Okay, so one fully covers, and then what you need to do is you hold the paper down over the top, okay, and you're going to cut where it needs to go. You'll figure it out. But that way it gave it the seamless look. So yeah, to do that you need 2 sheets of the same. Okay. For the closure, all I did, super simple. Here, let me tuck these in here out of the way. For a closure, all I did was on the very back, flip it around. Okay. I took a piece of sari silk ribbon and I glued it down just like so. And I only put the glue here in the center. I didn't want it to seep out and stain my ribbon on the edges. Okay, so I put my glue there in the center. I cut a sheet of decorative paper to fit and glued it down over the top. Easy peasy, that's all it needed. So I have a piece of ribbon underneath there, okay? And then it just wraps around. Okay, I gave myself plenty of room. I left them nice and long that I could actually wrap it around, and tie it here in the front. Okay, all right. I think that's it. You guys can finish decorating this up on your own, but that's the basics of it. And this video has gone on long enough, and I am sure you are tired of listening to me talk. So I'm going to let you go. Good luck. Have fun with it. Make it your own. Don't feel like you have to use my Be Digital kit. Use any kit you want, scrapbooking paper, whatever. But make this project your own. And if you decide to make one, let me know. I would love to see what you make. You can private message me pictures, post them on my Facebook page, The Book Vandal Shop. It'll show up in the community section, but I always try to share those posts myself on the page because then they get seen more. Anyway, make sure you tag me if you make one. Have fun with it. Good luck. Stay safe. Happy crafting, guys. Have a great weekend. Bye.